What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and training camp rolls on. We had the early scare, right, with Justin Fields and the dislocated toe, but he is back, and there is nothing to worry about. I gotta tell you, we've talked about it this week. The idea of the discipline, the idea of the tone, the culture, the attitude, right, has certainly been shifting, and I think it's now palpable and noticeable for everybody. So we want to talk about that a little bit, and how people are literally not being afraid to say it, not being afraid to discuss it, and talk about a couple of people who I think are actually impressing at camp and also are getting bigger, legitimately bigger at camp. And the first person I want to talk about here is Will McDonald. I mean, Will McDonald has come in at 240 pounds, which Aaron Glenn, again, the teaching part, has said specifically that helps him set the edge. He has been flashing at camp using kind of a spin move and power moves. As an edge rusher, his spin moves are now being compared to Dwight Freeney. Remember the Hall of Fame Colts pass rusher that is so great with that devastating spin move, okay? And remember, Will McDonald had 10 plus sacks last year. I think he was 8th in the NFL in sacks. If he were to get double-digit sacks again, he would be the first Jet rusher with double-digit sacks in back-to-back seasons all the way since John Abraham back in 2001 and 2002. But again, Aaron Glenn talking about that coaching is important to kind of unlock the next level for Will McDonald. Listen to what he had to say. He goes, coaching, it's all coaching, because he can do it. You just said he's never done it last year, right? Now you see him do it. It's just coaching. That's all it is. It's good for Will to be able to do that. He has the ability to rush with speed and power. He's going to need to be able to use both in this league. You know, Aaron Glenn really sounds like the loving but strict dad, right? He always hypes up his players that he can do it, that they're going to be good in this league, but always mentions what a player needs to be able to work on, right? For Will McDonald, it was getting a little bit bigger to be able to set the edge, but really talking about kind of that sky is the limit potential for a guy like Will McDonald. And I think that is really, really important. The reports out of camp are that he is having a great training camp, and that he, and I believe along with Jermaine Johnson, are going to be a really tough to deal with young pass rushing duo in this league. Let's keep an eye out on more kind of stuff around Will McDonald. He can really take that next step forward. There are people talking that he can kind of be a Pro Bowl caliber edge rusher, and especially he's gotten bigger and he's utilizing different moves now. We've seen some reps where he's going at it with Armand Membu, uses his spin, uses his quickness, but then will also use the bull rush and power, and adding that to his game. Aaron Glenn at least thinks it is all coaching being able to do that. Another guy I want to talk about here on this episode of Jets Latest is Bree Hall. We've talked about Bree Hall a lot. You know, I think he's really good as a receiving back. I think there's a lot there for Bree Hall. A lot of people have started to throw shade at Bree Hall. Will he get that next contract? I don't care. He's here now. I think he's going to be the lead back. But Bree Hall was talking about a number of things that we have mentioned here on Jets Latest. The first is how the run scheme this year is better for the Jets as a team. Check out what Bree Hall had to say. He goes, I think from an offensive standpoint, we're all really bought into this run scheme. It fits our backs more. It makes more sense to the guys up front and how we're going to set other plays up. Trusting our coaches now, it's been good. I think that's important, right? Kind of, they know what to do up front. I think the dual threat ability of Justin Fields is going to be another added element. Remember, the Jets as a team were 31st in the NFL last year in terms of rushing yards. So if the lead running back likes it, and a lot of people have been hyping up Braylon Allen in year 2, what he's going to be able to do as this kind of thunder and lightning, varied run game, it seems like Bree Hall is a believer. Bree Hall, another member of the Jets, talking about the difference, the night and day difference that the whole feeling around camp is under this new regime with Aaron Glenn. Listen to what he had to say. He goes, I just feel like the whole operation is run. I just like the way the whole operation is run. It feels a lot better to go to work every day. There was a whole lot of instability around the operation last year. Coach Glenn has done a great job of not only being a player's coach, but making sure that we get the right amount of work in too. It's been cool to see the standard he's set for everybody. It makes me want to come in every day and do my 1/11th every day. Again, the standard, the accountability, how it is a tight ship. We saw this at the beginning, even like around the media, for goodness sakes, right? There were no leaks coming into the draft. We talk about the kind of the brand of Jets football, how we are seeing that with things like the penalties and the tackling, right? This is all in alignment, the new vision, the new identity of the Jets, and whether it was AVT, whether it's been guys like Garrett Wilson, whether it's guys like Bree Hall, people are starting to talk about this. It's starting to sound like maybe the previous regime didn't have it all buttoned up, but that is certainly not the case here with Aaron Glenn. And quite frankly, I love to see it. That's how you turn an organization around. But also, people have been talking about Breece Hall and how long is he for the green and white, right? You got Braylon Allen, you got Isaiah Davis, you got others behind them. Will Breece Hall get that same kind of contract like a Sauce, like a Garrett Wilson, maybe like an AVT on the horizon? And Breece Hall makes no bones about it. He knows he has to prove himself. Listen to what he had to say. He goes, we've got a new head coach, a new GM, and obviously I wasn't drafted by them. I'm not their guy. So for me, I've got to prove it every day. I think for me, I've got a chip on my shoulder. I feel like right now, okay, it's my last chance. You know, for me, it's always been, oh, he's got potential. He's got potential. But I want to be the product. So now it's just all about putting my head down and working. And this is great to hear. Listen, to me, you heard when Sauce got his deal. You heard when Garrett Wilson got his deal. They were like, we still got to work. We haven't proven anything yet. You heard Quinnen Williams talk just like this, right? They still know the work that has to be put in. And Breece Hall's being real about it, you know, in essence saying that I haven't done anything. I'm not their guy necessarily. I have to show. I still have to prove. And I think that is the right attitude that all these Jets are having. Even going back to Darren Muji in free agency, trying to get guys that were still in their 20s, that had kind of high draft choices, that flashed in the league, but have a chip on their shoulder. All the way back to, as I've been saying all the time, Justin Fields in his kind of second act with a chip on his shoulder. The quiet work ethic and confidence, right? That is another thing that has been threaded through all of this Jets roster. One other guy I want to talk about today here on Jets Latest. We talk about the offensive line a lot. We talk about Membu a lot. I've talked about the center battle a little bit. I've talked about Elijah Vera Tucker. Remember, last year's first round pick, Olu Fashanu, I think is another important big piece of that. Another first round draft pick tackle. Him and Membu are going to be kind of cornerstones of this O-line for years to come, hopefully. And we're getting positive reports about Olu Fashanu as well. Check out what Olu had to say, and then what Aaron Glenn had to say about the second-year tackle out of Penn State. First, Olu says, I just want to be able to play at a slightly heavier weight than I was last year. I feel like last year I was still on the lighter side of being a tackle. Now I feel a lot better, a lot stronger, and a lot more powerful. And isn't that interesting? Because, listen, he's not the only one who is added. Remember, I just talked about Will McDonald going up to 240 pounds. We talked about Sauce Gardner adding weight going up to 200 pounds. Olu was putting in the work in the offseason as well. Another theme. And that has been positive reinforced by Aaron Glenn. Listen to what he had to say. He goes, in OTAs, Olu committed to a number of days of just being here. And I'm not just talking about the times he had to be here. He was here on the weekends getting work in on his own. He's committed to making sure he's available and also that he's going to be a huge part of what we're trying to build when it comes to the offensive line. He's a big physical man with long arms. You want your left tackle to be built the way he's built. So I'm excited about that player. I'm excited about how he's going to mature as camp goes on. I think this is important. I think him and Membu have the potential to really anchor this. We know the interior offensive line of the Jets is something that rated in the top 5 last year with Vera Tucker, with Simpson, and of course Tippmann as well. So if these guys can truly be the bookends, and again, another comparison analogy to the Detroit Lions, where Aaron Glenn and Tanner Angstrand have come over from. The Detroit Lions in their turnaround were based in that offensive line. All pros with Penei Sewell, guys like Ragnow, Zietler, Decker, right? They had a strong top 5 offensive line, and the Jets are looking to put that together here as well. And don't forget about Fashanu. We talk about the interior offensive line. We know about Membu as the number 7 overall draft pick, but Fashanu last year was like, what, number 12? We took him ahead of Brock Bowers, if you remember, and that could be paying off because we get Fashanu, we get Membu this year, and we still could have gotten our tight end in Mason Taylor in the second round. So that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. That's what we are seeing at camp. It is really palpable. It is really different what is happening at One Jet much drive. The feeling is that of professionalism, toughness, and a high standard that these players all want to achieve through hard work. That's how a turnaround is done. Let's be patient, Jets fans, but so far, so good. And I always want to talk about what you guys are saying in the comments. Thank you to the almost 2,000 subscribers we have. Thank you to everybody watching these videos, commenting on the videos, liking these videos. I say it all the time. Tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. It's going to be a fun season here. Let's see what you guys have to say. Evelyn Lopez, 669, who has thrown me some shade about being the New Jersey Jets, the New York Jets, says, you can't teach speed, but you can't teach speed, but you can teach catching the ball. I can teach a dog how to catch a ball. That's in relation to Arian Smith, right, who has that blazing speed and has been working on the jugs machine, looking at refined route running, things of that nature. We've got Charlie Fields, 6260, who says, I really believe it starts with the O-line, so Brees and company will be better. Also thinks Mason Taylor will have a great season with G17 becoming a huge threat. That's Garrett Wilson. I talk about the G5, the expensive flight, the jet, as it were. But really, it does start with the O-line, right? I've given you stats about how the best offensive lines in the league, those teams make the playoffs, okay? That ensures a pretty high floor for the Jets, and it looks like, by all accounts, the Jets are going to be a top 10 offensive line, at least on paper, with room to grow as these young guys get even stronger together. And then Sharon McLean, who's been in the comments, you've heard me give shout-outs to Sharon McLean, once again says, feeling good about where we are headed. Been a Jets fan since 1967, and it's been a lengthy fandom. Dumb spent D-U-M-B, right? Like dumb. But we don't have to feel that way anymore. It is not done. It is being put together in an appropriate, professional, correct football attitude kind of way. And that is something, finally, I bet Sharon and all you other Jets fans can be proud of. But remember, keep on tuning into Jets Latest here to build that pride. We're going to have preseason games on the horizon, more camp news, camp battles, and other stuff that we are doing with the Jets, Jets. Remember to hit me up in the comments. Follow me on Twitter at Spittin' Speeds. And if you want to hear more from me, Spittin' Statistician Dane Martinez, I am the host over on SiriusXM, Channel 87, the fantasy channel of the FTN Fantasy Show. FTN Fantasy, a great company, rankings, content, stats hub with all sorts of tools and data to help you get ready for fantasy football season, be a better sports bettor and a better fantasy player. I also, this week, I'm going to be taking part in a expert industry draft, right, with guys that names you know, Jeff Ratcliffe, Andy Behrens, Brandon Funston, and others, in a kind of expert league as really fantasy football draft season really kicks off. So check my social media timeline and all sorts of stuff for that. If you ever want to hit me up on Twitter or even hear about questions in fantasy or call into the show that I do on SiriusXM, you know I'd love to have you. But if you're just here for the green and white, have no fear. I will be here every day as training camp is really starting to heat up as we get going for preseason games. It's going to be a great season. Tell a friend to tell a friend. But for now, for this episode of Jets Latest, we out of here. Peace.